Yeah, it was a good time, honey, under the sky. Yeah, it was a good time, honey, just you and I. Feeling alright.
Hey, welcome to All Wheels Podcast. I'm Evan, and I'm here with Max and Brady. What's up, guys?
Yep.
Howdy, howdy.
So, welcome back. This is episode 9, and we are continuing our series on forced induction. If you listen to, well, you haven't yet, but you hopefully will listen to our Turbochargers episode. And today we're talking about Superchargers. So we're going to keep talking about kind of a technical topic. We were actually just having our pre-podcast meeting and discussing that we may have laid it on a little thick in our technical discussion last time.
It really was our first tech heavy or at least info heavy podcast or episode. So
Yeah,
we've definitely learned a lot from it and know how big our mouths can chew now at this point. So
Yeah.
Well, I would love to hear from any feedback on that, because we're going to try to improve it. We're trying to figure out the best way to do technical topics because we want to, but we want them to be entertaining and still useful and stuff. So it's a learning curve for us, but any feedback would be helpful too. So
send us notes.
Let us know because we're working on it.
well,
anyway. Go ahead.
Potentially have another info heavy episode being on Superchargers. But I think just how these notes turned out to be is they're a little bit lighter than the turbocharging one on top. Or as it worked out. So
right.
We'll be able to squeeze in, because I did feel a little rushed also. I think all of us did it.
Well, it was we just bit off too much info to try and put into one episode and then have it stay super informative. So anyways, don't judge us on that, but hopefully there's some useful stuff there, and then definitely let us know what you think. And we're going to keep working on the right way to do that format. So it'll take some practice, but we'll get there. Yeah,
and reach out to us, because your thoughts are important to us as far as how we can keep structuring this to be optimized to how you all listen to it. So
one of the most useful things we got was feedback from Motorbike Mondays. I was thinking about that, like emails we got about people saying like what worked, what didn't, what was really helpful, what type of information was best, like whatever. We got a lot of emails, I feel like, because we would read them at the start of the show, and there's always 3 or 4 every week or whatever.
Absolutely.
And that was really helpful. So anyways, hopefully as this kind of continues rolling, we'll start getting some of those, because they are certainly useful for us.
Yeah, I'd love to get, I can't wait till we start to get emails and people chiming in.
Well, it took us a while then too. I bet we were like 8 episodes in before anybody cared, but once people start listening, we certainly got good feedback. So absolutely. It was useful.
Well, we'd also have like a month in between episodes too. So
we were certainly not on any schedule. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Evan, as soon as you buy a sweet Firebird, everybody will start to listen.
Oh, man. Someday soon. You know what I think I'm about to buy, though?
Oh, what?
Speaking of buying stuff. So I said, I was selling my Dyna because I'm just tired of fixing old Harleys, and I just want one nice, reliable, modern, fuel-injected, comfortable, sweet bike. And I think I showed it to you, didn't I? It's a
drum roll.
It's a 2013 Moto Guzzi Stelvio.
Come on!
It is so sweet.
What?
What?
You disagree?
Damn, this is okay. We got some controversy here. Why?
Folks, we have the gloves going on.
Damn.
They're
okay. Lay it out. Why? What's the problem?
Inefficient, unreliable, overweight.
Yes.
You just described
drama machines. I don't know. You were just talking about I'm just so sick of reliability, which apparently it's Dynas are the best Harleys ever made.
They are. But that's
so you're going to
Okay, hang on. The Dyna's perfectly reliable. It just leaks a lot of oil, and I'm tired of plugging leaks. It's like,
especially after Homeboy revved the shit out of it.
Oh yeah, that's
right.
It's like, you know that cartoon, like, I feel like this is in some cartoon where there's like a dam leaking or something and the dude like puts his finger in the hole and then like another hole fucking blows open and starts leaking. This is what the Dyna's like. Super reliable as long as you keep oil in it, but it doesn't, you fix one leak and the next one shows up and I'm tired of it. And I've had them for years. I kind of want something new. What, dude, I love Moto Guzzi's, but I've only had the ancient
I'm very
ones.
aware of that. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, with my experience, I mean, I don't know.
the
I don't have any
Moto Guzzi
experience
is-
with the newer Moto Guzzi's, but
Yeah,
the stigma's
so-
still there for me, I guess. But
why? Like, who hurt you? based on what?
yours for the most part. Like I hadn't been around Moto Guzzi's until I really met you.
Do you remember when I had that ambassador or whatever? I remember riding over to your shop and I blew the oil. The oil. I blew the oil dipstick out of the crankcase somehow. I literally tore the threads up and blew the dipstick out. And I like called Brady. I'm like, dude, I need some oil. I'm like a mile from you guys.
That's right.
You did that
Such
with one of your. Was it the white shovel head you overfilled and it kept blowing the dipstick out?
No, that was this. That was the purple Dyna. That's what I had.
It
now.
was?
When I overfilled it in the winter, did an oil change in the winter, thought it was fine until the summer and it got super hot. And then it absolutely blew the dipstick out of the oil tank and just started volcanoing oil all over the side of the bike.
And you we couldn't figure it out and we plugged it back in and you started up and it did it. In
Well, then we rode to bike night and I kept my foot on top of I just put my foot on the dipstick to keep it in.
Dude.
Oh my God.
Oh my gosh.
Don't do anything I do. Just do what I say. Don't ever do.
And sometimes question that too.
Yeah, and don't even do that.
So yeah, the new modern Moto Guzzi's I think are a whole new animal. They
Well,
have reliable final drives, basically maintenance free.
so JJ, our buddy JJ, had this literally this exact same bike for like 2 years, and I was talking to him tonight about it, and he was like, he said I should have never sold it. He said it was one of the best motorcycles I've ever owned.
Yeah,
and that's a pretty good recommendation.
And it wasn't a Husky 701.
No.
Ooh, nice bike.
No. But here's what's cool about this one. You're not gonna believe this. It's a 2013, and it literally has 163 miles on it.
Yeah,
and I
it's
talked to the dude that
brand
bought it.
new.
He's a 78-year-old guy. He bought it brand new in 2012, right when the 2013s came out. And he has arthritis in his back or something. And he said he literally
From
rode
the
it 2 times.
107 miles it's
No.
put on it.
No, unrelated. But he literally rode it twice, two like day-long trips, and then parked it. And he says he goes out and he polishes it. He literally told me this. He goes out and he polishes it and he starts it once a week to keep it like running well because he's so bummed he can't ride anymore.
Yeah.
But
Well, I
he,
mean,
like-
that's literally like that's a brand new motorcycle.
Yeah, absolutely. He was the nicest dude. I talked to him for like an
Is
hour.
he going to
tonight.
come
He
down
was
the
so
price
cool.
at all? JJ said it was a little expensive.
I talked to him a bit. He was listed at 9, which it's literally a new motorcycle, but it's also, 8, 9, whatever,
Almost
it's
10
old,
years,
right?
yeah.
10 years old.
10 years,
And so I'm like, okay, man. I'm like, I don't know. But I get the feeling he'll sell it for 8. I don't think he'll go below that. And I've looked a lot. I think that's a fair price for it in the condition and mileage.
Yeah,
and
because you
stuff.
might find one with 40,000 miles for 7, but
You can, but to me that extra 1,000 is probably worth the
Yeah, it's
trade-off on
worth
a
the brand
new
new
one, right?
You
So
can
which-
just buy it,
which
sell it
model
on,
is
bring a
this?
trailer. sell
It's
it for
called it's a
100,000.
2013 Stelvio NTX, which is think like the BMW GS Adventure. So it's like bigger gas tank. It has aluminum hard bags. It has heated grips, taller suspension.
So it's like, what?
it's
Yeah,
a cool
I
bike.
remember-
Way. I didn't know Moto Guzzi made bikes like that.
Yeah,
it's an
it's
adventure,
super
dual
cool.
sport.
I love it. It's like everything I liked about my GS 1150, but it's more Moto Guzzi.
Yeah, so what I'm used to
I like.
is like their somewhat naked bikes or their like
Oh, you're
sport
thinking like their
cruiser,
mod.
like-
Oh no, I do not
Like
like
V,
their,
what is it, V7s or
The
something like that?
V7.
No,
Yeah.
the V7
Yeah.
Sports are pretty rad. I like those as like a modern cafe racer kind of thing. I've never ridden one. I just think they look cool, but I don't want something like that.
Gotcha.
And I don't like their modern retro cruiser things like the California or whatever they call it. That's like huge, kind of Harley-ish gas
so
tank, and like
weird.
it's just a
Yeah.
weird mix. It's not for me.
Okay,
But this is their
I'm
adventure
coming
bike.
around.
It's kinda cool.
I'm coming around.
It's essentially it's a GS. I mean, it's essentially the Super Tenere,
just
or
with
the
some more
BMW
angle
GS.
on the opposed
Yep.
cylinders.
Yeah.
Did you
What do
ever
they call
ride JJ's?
No, but I
Max?
rode one when they were coming out. I went down when it was the dealership was on. When Matt had it, what was that? It was on
Oh,
like
the
Mason
one that was
and
on-
Horsetooth.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, I rode one. He had a used one come in, and I ripped it all around the reservoir. I was like,
How was
"It's
it?
fantastic. It was great."
Yeah.
Has a-
JJ
has a
couldn't say
different
enough about how good it was.
Yeah, it's a different sort of vibration than a BMW, but the final drives are basically maintenance free. They've
Right.
got all that resolved. You know, it's a 1200. It's big and bulky like any other leader,
Yeah.
dual sport bike, but it was great. It was great.
Well-
Heated grips, everything.
What
Right.
would you call that engine orientation? I knew at some point. It's like
Transverse V
a
twin.
transverse
Yeah.
V twin. Gotcha. Yeah.
I think.
So I've only had
Well-
experience with like the Honda CX. Was it?
Oh yeah,
500
I've had
or,
a couple of those. Those are cool.
But
Well, it certainly makes stuff like, valve adjustments and stuff easier. Those have the new ones. I was looking it up. They still have like.
is it still push rod or?
Yeah, I believe it is push rod, and it's a rocker tight, screw and lock nut rocker adjustment.
No way. Nut
Yeah,
and tap
and it's
it?
like 6,500 miles between adjustments or something. And you can do it in 5 minutes, and
So it's
That's
like a
actually
BMW.
pretty sweet.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's similar. The downside is, well, not a downside. It's the CX was really bad because if you ever had a stator fail in them, which was
you
common,
gotta pull
you
the
literally pull
entire
the motor out
apart.
because it's in the back. And what's still cool about the Guzzies is they use a belt-driven alternator like the GSs do. So it's mounted up in the V
That's
up
cool.
top, and it's all external, so it's very easy. But plus, it's an alternator, and it's like a car alternator. It doesn't fail anyways.
So you think you're going to get it?
Well, I'm interested. I really didn't want to buy anything till the Harley sold, but this one sounds so sweet that I kind of want to go check it out, and I guess I'll just buy it and hope the Harley sells really soon. Because it seems really good. I mean, it seems really,
Nice.
really, really sweet deal for such a nice bike.
Yeah, I mean,
Well,
it's a brand new bike, pretty much how you describe it.
But I did want to ask you guys, because I feel like I got not burned, but like the problems I've had with my F-150 is it's 2007 with no miles on it, like 28,000 miles, and all the shit I had to replace and stuff. I feel like a lot of it was because it was low miles sitting so long.
Yeah, exactly.
So then
Yeah,
I
that's-
worry, dude, this bike has no miles on it and it's 10 years old. Is that stupid?
Well, if it's as you explained, how it was explained to you, it was fired up once a week.
Yeah.
Then that
word for word, he
covers
said
that
that.
covers most of the issues. I mean, if it's not ridden,
Well,
you
it's
just
not
have
spinning the final drive or anything.
Yeah.
That's
yeah,
there's stuff back
exactly.
there that can dry up for sure. And it could leak from the hub and all that crap.
But I mean,
Yeah,
with
you should
that,
definitely take it for a long ride. He's got to let you take it for 50, 40 miles or something. Just make sure you don't.
I
come
think
back
I
and
would
it's
insist on that
pouring oil out of every.
I'd leave cash with him, but I've got to ride it enough to know that it does not need every
Yeah.
seal replaced.
Yeah.
Of course, what's he going to do if I bring it back and it's leaking oil?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm
Well,
a
maybe
little.
just talk about some of
don't
that
know.
stuff beforehand. Like I'm still interested, but if all of a sudden I got to pull the final drive and replace this, and if this starts to leak, like you got to come down on price or something.
Well, I
Well-
think it's a legitimate concern.
well,
really.
also one thing you have to think about too is yes, it only has 110 miles on it, but those tires are probably brand new too, and that's at the 10-year mark.
Yeah.
That's where I mean, I don't think they're gonna kill you, but that's
Yeah,
where
it'll
you have to
likely
start
need new
questioning. I
tires.
mean, that's a
Well, he told me, he's like, it comes with 2 extra sets of tires. He's like, 'cause I'm really picky about tires, so I have the originals. I put a set of knobbies on it a month after I bought it, and then it comes with another set I bought a year later or something. And then,
Wow.
and I didn't get into it then, but I was like, well, yeah, but they're still all 10 years old.
Yeah, exactly.
Like they might all be brand new, but they're also
yeah.
ancient. So
Yeah.
I mean,
I mean,
there's
if they're
stuff
stored
like that.
inside and the garage is heated, and I'm sure it's fine.
I would
would
think
think.
so.
Yeah.
I would think so. And yeah, we'll see. He was a nice dude. I certainly don't want to like lowball him, but I'm also not interested if it's going to be extra work or anything.
You don't owe him anything. I mean, that's
No, but he was-
part of negotiation is trying to get the best deal for I mean,
yeah.
ideally,
But
if you're a good
I
human
felt
for
him
both
out.
parties, but
He's not going to give it away. I mean, he was very clear on that.
yeah.
He was very clear on it being worth $9,000, and I was like, well, in a perfect world, I don't disagree with you, but you also live in the middle of nowhere. I mean, he's in Livermore, kind of Red Feather Lakes area, right? So he's a little ways out, and I'm kind of like, okay, nobody's going up there unless they really want that thing, and you're also not barely advertising it. That it's only on Facebook Marketplace from a friend posting it.
I was just gonna
and
say it was like his grandson or something.
Yes, and it has 2 sentences saying like brand new bike, but don't contact me. I don't know anything. Call this number. And I was like, this is.
This
and I was like,
sketchy.
yeah, but Max, think of that like Goldwing. Remember?
Yep.
So like you never know. Like I'll make a phone call. Maybe it's a scam. Maybe
Yeah.
not. I'm fine to feel it out. Turned out it was legit. So, it was worth calling, but we'll see.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
So
Well,
anyways,
I'm excited to
opposite
hear
land.
the updates.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. We'll know more next week.
I started defarkling the 1150 GS because nobody cares about that stuff.
I've been
So I
watching
started-
your ads on that. I'm bummed.
Oh
that thing's
man,
not selling.
I took the O-leans off. I took the bags off. And then I started it, and one of the fuel lines up underneath the tank that goes to the
the
quick-
fuel
quick
pump
connect.
or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay.
You
have the
one of those-
disconnects on it.
Yep, one of them cracked, started leaking, so I pulled the tank off, replaced that line, put it back together, got it all done, fired it up, and now it's running awful on one cylinder.
Really?
Yeah, I have no idea.
Why would that be?
I don't know. It was running perfect.
Damn.
And then I thought maybe that I switched the quick connects, maybe.
But
it's impossible.
But God, it's been a long time since I changed those. But doesn't it have 2 fuel lines coming out of the fuel pump, and the disconnects
Yes.
go to either throttle body?
Yes.
So then it doesn't matter which is which, right? Because they're
No, I think they split. I think one of them is. Oh no, I guess that is what it is.
that's what I am thinking. But it's been like 3 years since I changed those. I don't really remember.
I don't know. It's probably something stupid. I'm going to pull maybe I just fouled the plug. I mean, it sat for so long. This is what happens when you leave a motorcycle sitting.
Yeah,
It's just-
I know.
I tried to start. I tried to be like that guy and start it once a month.
Bipolar
But
disorder.
Yeah, they don't like it. Any of
No.
that stuff.
they
It's
don't
always
know.
cool to get excited on like something that's low miles and all. And then you're kind of like, oh crap! But
Yeah.
what's going to be wrong from never being used?
Yeah.
So hopefully I can figure it out and it's something easy.
Well,
about
do
it.
you still need that? What were we talking about? The cat box,
catalytic
the Y
converter.
pipe thing.
Yes.
Do you need
Yep.
that?
Yeah, ask that guy if I can have it.
I will. Okay, I'll ask him.
just
So
don't-
I
just
sold
don't
mine.
pay
I had
for
the
it.
same GS Max had, and I sold mine last year, and mine had an exhaust on it from Max, and I had the original cat Y pipe box thing that I gave to the guy. But yeah, he's selling my bike that I sold him. I saw,
Yeah.
and it still has the Z Technic exhaust on it, so he probably still has the cat box sitting
Yeah,
around.
if he'd let me have it, that'd be awesome.
He's a good
I
dude.
could
I'll ask him. Yeah,
Take
he's
off
a
my-
nice guy.
Take off the wet pipe. Anyway, the moral of the story is, hopefully I can get it stripped back down, put it back to stock, sell it, and then I'll sell all the rest of the stuff on the side.
Yeah, those parts will move. The suspension for sure. Oh my god!
Yeah,
you
I
put that
think
on
so.
ADV Rider, it'll be gone in.
Yeah,
A
and the
weekend, I
GV
bet.
luggage, the rear luggage is a lot bigger than the BMW luggage, and
Yeah.
I've got the nice gowing seats. But
Yeah, those
it
parts.
felt
will
good
move.
it felt good to like fucking turn a
Work on
wrench.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, it just was. I was telling my daughter, I was like, I'm gonna go out and work on the bike, and she was like, "Really? I haven't heard you say that in
That's
7
awesome.
months."
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah,
Come help me on the Airhead. I've got that thing in pieces in the
I
garage.
saw.
I'm at the cleaning stage right now, the deturning the entire bike.
That's
I pulled the starter out of it. I took the top cover off, and I'm trying to clean
Yeah.
everything. And I pulled the starter out, and there was a rat's nest or mouse nest or whatever.
It's
in there.
incredible where mice can
was
get
crazy.
into. It's unbelievable.
Oh,
Yeah.
that reminds me. I've got a good question that you guys could answer. Okay, so I wasn't going to, but I ended up having to change the steering stem bearings on the Airhead because they have no miles on them. I thought they'd be fine. But when I had it in the air and I had the forks apart and everything, and I took that apart, and they were so bad. The grease had dried up, and they actually wore grooves into the races. So
Yeah.
the steering, it was so notchy, it was horrible. So I'm like, okay, whatever, I'll replace them. And I did, and all that went fine. And like an idiot, I put the lower bearing back on the triple, like on the steering stem, and I forgot to, I bought a new one and I forgot to put the grease cup. It's just like a little metal tray
Just-
with to hold grease underneath the bearing. I put the bearing on, hammered it in place, and it cooled down and it was locked in there. And then I found the grease cup sitting there and I was like, oh my God. I put the front end back together without it. I greased the hell out of them and I was like, what's the worst case here? Like, I'm going to get a little bit of grease leaking out. Like,
yeah. I mean, it's just going to
Is
be
that
on
stupid?
your mind for the most part.
it's been driving me crazy, but I don't want to take it apart.
Yeah.
I mean,
It's probably
will
just like you said, gonna just maybe squeeze out a little bit.
a little bit more than, I don't know. It should, I'd say.
I figured what would be the worst thing? You might get like water could get up in there or something, but it's also such a tight fit between the frame and the bottom clamp that like I can't imagine unless you're underwater. I don't think that's a huge issue.
Yeah, I think you're fine.
And I packed it so full of grease. I greased the hell out of the bearing and everything. And
I mean,
then
grease is hydrophobic to begin with too. So like,
right.
as long as it's all coated in there,
Oh,
I think you're fine. It's not something I recommend doing, but
no,
I think you're totally
I
fine.
bought the part.
Yeah,
literally
no,
bought
I know,
the new
I
one.
know.
Like an idiot, I left it on the workbench.
Yeah.
And I was so pissed because I didn't find it until I had put the whole clamp back together, and then I found it sitting there, and I was just like looking at it. And I'm like, I cannot go back and redo
Yeah.
it.
That's the worst.
Oh, I was so
I
mad.
mean, the thing is, like the older like ball bearing style don't really have seals to begin with, anyway.
Right.
So
Right. And the tapered roller bearing's better anyways,
yeah,
right?
Exactly.
So this was stupid. I just feel like it's not worth the amount of effort to take it all apart to put a new one in.
No, and chances are you're going to destroy the cage.
I'll
at least
destroy
of
the bearing. There's no chance of getting it off.
exactly.
It's such a tight fit. I'll
Yeah.
demolish a new bearing.
Yeah.
And that's another $40. I don't want to do that. I already spent way
Well,
too much
honestly,
money on this area.
like
Dude,
just the
you got
time
this.
too. Like fucking getting old bearings off are
so much work.
Such a pain in the ass.
Yeah.
Even new
just did it
bearings
on my-
getting them off are a pain.
It's horrible.
Remember that green bike I had, Evan, that
Yeah.
88 R100? We
Yeah.
did it. My friend Sean and I did it. He has got a bearing press and puller, and even with that, it was like
Even
Yeah.
with the tools, it's hard.
It's a hell of a job, but it's so worth it. Oh my God, it's one of the most
It is.
satisfying when you're done.
Well-
a brand new steering. Oh, it feels so good.
Yeah.
There was no choice. Once I had it I didn't notice it when it was on the ground, and it's like it didn't run well enough to ride it. I rode it around the block, like it wasn't really rideable. And so I didn't notice, but then in the air, I'm like moving the bars around. It was so notchy, it locked into place in the center where the bike had been sitting forever. And then you'd actually feel it pop out of the center.
Yeah, there's like a detent like feeling. Like
Well,
in the
when I took
steering.
it all apart, only the top bearing actually rolled. The bottom bearing was frozen with concrete grease in it. So the bottom bearing actually wasn't rolling at all.
Yeah.
It was just being forced to like twist in the race.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, I can't really, there's no choice here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Another order from Euromoto.
I'll be doing all that on the /5 that's been sitting. I'm
Yeah.
gonna get-
Well, and that's, I think I told you guys that. I talked to Matt the other day, who's our buddy that works at Euromoto Electric. He's their like CEO, I think. And he definitely wants to come on and talk with us and stuff. And Max and I don't. Have you ever had an airhead, Brady? Or you're not particularly.
I have,
into them,
yeah,
right?
but I've
You
never
have had
really
one?
worked on it. I had it for a project
Yeah.
that never happened.
Oh, got it.
But have I built one? No. So I that one, the donor bike was running that we got, and it was for another project, but it never came through. So we had this like awesome, really good condition airhead that really didn't need anything.
Right.
And so I just rode around a lot for like the rides we used to do, and it was kind of
Nice.
like I kind of fell in love with it. I understood
dude,
BMW
they are
airheads because of that.
so great. They're just like the best 70s motorcycle ever,
Yeah.
I think. They're
And
amazing.
I loved how the power came on too.
Yeah. They're just everything about them's awesome.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to go balls out on this one and just end up with a really, really rad airhead.
I think the one that we had was an R90/7. I think
Six.
That's what
Or
Evan has,
6
yeah.
maybe.
Yeah.
That's what
Yeah.
mine is. I think that's that's the best combo for like
It was
older looks,
it was
but
awesome.
more of the more modern stuff than the /5.
And
I think it's
it still had like that
best one.
toaster-ish shape, gas tank.
yeah.
And I don't know, it was a cool bike. I had a lot of really cool ideas for that project. I'm really bummed it didn't really.
I would
come
love
out.
to see
First
you
cafe.
build an airhead. Actually, you could build an amazing airhead.
I've got 4 different designs for builds based on an airhead.
Oh my god! I
that
should have just
never
sent
made
you. I should have just sent you this bike.
Oh, dude! I think it's on my. I have it somewhere. It's on probably like an old hard drive. I've got like full concept build that I built in like Photoshop.
Rad.
Oh my god! I bet you could absolutely kill it with one of those.
Dude, it was cool. One was like a racer. Like it had like front cowling and like I did the single side, single shock like setup, and it's all like modern but tastefully done. Like still had like vintage to it, but
we need to post some of the pictures of the bikes you did and stuff because you built some really awesome bikes.
Yeah, I can.
We
I
didn't
can
really
throw those
focus
in.
on that, but Brady built some like absolutely stunning motorcycles.
Yeah, well, people.
Yeah, we got to
people
use our
knew about
Instagram.
me.
I posted something. We got to stay more active on Instagram.
I put a picture up today. Did you see the picture?
No.
8
The
years ago
Motorbike
today,
Monday, I saw that like an
we
hour
were
ago.
at Deus Ex for that Saturday school thing.
Yeah, that was kind of cool.
It was cool.
Yeah,
I'm gonna look
and
at it.
honestly, I think each of us, Jared included, like helped like 4 people each, like in the parking lot with their bikes, like fixing something.
Yeah, I thought it was cool. That was fun. We did this like they called it Saturday school. It was like
look at you guys.
It was like a I don't know. They had all these different like people there to show you how to do stuff and fix things and stuff. It was cool. But we actually brought up a CB 500 or 550. I don't know what it was, and showed how to. You guys showed how to do the valves, and I did a thing on how to test and wind stators or something. It was really cool.
Yeah. In the meantime, like every other like I don't know tint, their like demos was like. And here's how you properly strap a helmet. And here's how you...
it was.
And we're like, fucking get into it, boy. I was like, well...
It was really bad. It was just like, here's how to put gas in your motorcycle.
Exactly.
And we're over here like taking apart a motor.
Yeah, exactly. Here's how you make sure your shoelaces don't get caught up in your chain.
Here's how to choose the correct gloves to match your helmet.
And Motul was it Motul or Maxxis? I think lubricants was there too.
Somebody was.
Yeah. Well, they didn't ask.
But
them
it
to do
was.
a demo,
I got the feeling. I'm not criticizing anybody, but I do remember thinking it was like that was the like hipster motorcycle crowd, and it was not a huge like
do it yourself,
maintain or do it yourself crowd, anyways.
Yeah,
and I don't think
exactly.
that's their target market at that place. So
no.
it was kind of interesting. Like I felt like we were a little, maybe not. We were a little extreme for like what most people were there trying to learn. But
yeah, definitely.
I find
it was
that
cool.
A lot.
Yeah,
it was cool.
Oh
There's
no,
plenty
it
of
was
people
fun.
that go find a sweet pair of gloves and a really tight leather jacket rather than, go to work on their,
Well,
look
I've
the
just
part.
entirely given up on looking cool, so like that's way off the map now.
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
it's kind of nice now that that's not a concern anymore. I'd rather just work on motorcycles.
Exactly.
So, anyways,
but no,
right.
I'll dig through and start posting here and there.
I think
some
you should. You've
motorcycle
got some
stuff.
killer bikes that would look really cool in there. Well, what do you got? Anything you want to talk about working on? Or
Honestly,
you should, and then let's jump into. Our
I don't
topic
really
here.
have too much this week. I for the most part, I'm doing as much as I remember being a detailer when I was like 17.
Just making all those old cars look nice.
Well, that 41 Master Deluxe that I had been working on a few episodes ago. Advertising to sell that one. So it's been sitting a while and it's running. I've got it running as well as it can really at this point without putting like unneeded or unnecessary money into it.
Yeah.
So I've kind of just been spending time just bringing the paint and everything kind of back to life a little bit. So
Nice.
and
Yeah. Put up a picture of that thing. That's a sweet car.
yeah, oh definitely, dude. I've got that thing starting now. Like after like
Just
2
perfect.
days of sitting, like you turn the ignition on, it's got the foot starter. You give it like a pump of fuel or throttle, which it doesn't have a pumper anyways in it or an accelerator pump, so it doesn't do anything.
Yeah.
And within like
Right away.
comes to
Wow.
life.
Nice.
So I honestly didn't even think that was possible, to be honest with you. So
Yeah,
I'm
that's
not
rad.
saying that that's me. I could have got pretty lucky on it, but
No, but that's a good sign of having it tuned pretty damn well.
yeah,
If it starts like that.
definitely. So that's the
Oh,
coolest thing I've done pretty much since. So
I found out something interesting. This is kind of off topic, but we were talking at some point, at least a little bit. You're talking about like running well. Just made me think of this. I was talking at some point about I have the Holley Sniper fuel injection in my Falcon, right?
yeah.
And I just changed this last weekend, and it made a huge improvement to idle stability, especially. So I always noticed that car, no matter what I did, idled a little rough. It would just have like this little bit of a shake at idle, and it wasn't bad. It didn't even need to be fixed, but I drive it a
Slight
lot, and
stumble
always
or something.
just always like
Yeah.
bugged me because you'd feel it. It'd be idling fine, and it's got a fairly lumpy cam, so a lot of that is hard to detect, anyways. But you would feel it when it happened. You just get this like momentary like shudder to it.
Yeah.
And I have tried everything I could think of, never been able to fix it. Not even a big problem, so I wasn't super concerned. But I changed, so I had always had a typical Ford PCV valve in it with a little ball in it, you know.
Yeah.
And I came across some guys on the the Holley Sniper forum or group or whatever on Facebook, where all these dudes are always trying to troubleshoot how crappy the Holley Sniper system is. And one guy had mentioned you're having a PCV valve like that causes a unstable vacuum leak. Basically, it's always changing a little bit. So the computer
I
is
see.
constantly trying to adapt to it. So one dude was like, "Hey, if you had like the kind of this weird problem, and try it was this random PCV valve from a Chevy 2003 Chevy V8 5.3 V8 that looks like a PCV valve, but it's a fixed hole. It's literally empty. There's nothing in it but a tiny fixed hole inside of it, and it fits in the same diameter grommet in the valve cover. Like nothing changes. So I put that in and hooked it back up, and like
No
idles like butter,
way.
like instantly gone. And then I was like, holy shit, the whole time it was the ECU trying to like constantly adjust
yeah.
for these little variations in vacuum leak from the PCV valve.
Does it run better overall?
No, it doesn't make any
It
difference
only
off idle.
affects
Just idle.
exactly.
No, just idle. But it was just, I just thought that was like super interesting because it
Yeah.
was something that would have never occurred to me. And you put this in, you get rid of the variable that the computer is constantly trying to adapt for and make it fixed. It's just a hole. And so it's always the same amount of air leak. And then the computer can compensate for it like steadily. It doesn't have to change anything. And I was like, oh my God, like that's really simple. And I would have never, ever thought about it.
Wow.
So anyways,
Go
I thought that was
Facebook
crazy.
forums.
So I'm not running
cool.
any PCV system, and at least that LS that I swapped in that 53.
I have no idea if that even matters on a more modern motor.
Oh, that's right. Yeah,
Maybe it does.
I
My
don't
car
think
has
so.
A roller cam 5 liter. It's not
It
a
shouldn't.
super old
I mean,
motor,
it really shouldn't. Like,
but it's not using heads or any. It's using heads from a 302, right? So it's like everything on it is old 60s V8 era stuff.
well, if anything, it's
but-
probably because I'm sure you had to add like a map sensor to that system, or is it built into?
No,
the,
that's built into the throttle,
throttle
body.
body,
Actually,
okay.
yeah.
It's
The only
probably
thing you add is an
messing-
O2 sensor.
It's probably messing with that sensor.
Well, the thing I worried about was there's no other way to vent any pressure from the motor. So if you don't have a PCV valve,
Well, I'm running a catch can. So
okay, so you still have a way to vent pressure.
Yeah,
out from,
exactly.
Okay, so I could do it. Sure, it doesn't have to be a PCV valve. I just it was already there from the old carburetor, so I ran it back to the bottom of the manifold, or to the bottom of the throttle.
What is
body.
a
just throw
what
it
is a
to
catch can? I've
atmosphere.
never heard that term.
Well, you have to have some way of letting pressure out of the crankcase, and with that pressure is going to come oil mist and fumes and shit. So having a catch can will let you not blow oil.
Yeah. So
vapor
it
and
pretty
stuff all
much
over.
has like a
way to condense the oil back
an
down.
SOS pad, like in
Yeah, to
this
soak it up.
cylinder that essentially catches the oil mist from the breather, and then
Gotcha.
just mine has at least the one I put in has a filter on the top, so it just filtered pressure. Just
well, that's
gases
honestly,
atmosphere.
that would do about. That's probably even better actually if I did something like that and just got rid of the vent to the throttle body altogether.
Yeah, well, that makes sense. Because you're manipulating essentially what that sensor, that map sensor, is picking up, because it's
when you add that vacuum being pulled in below because it runs into the base of the throttle body, so it's after the throttle blades.
Yeah, exactly.
So you're having the computer sensing it pulling, more air essentially in through there, and then it is constantly trying to have to add fuel to compensate.
Yeah.
And the car never idles perfectly steady with a big cam anyway, so it's like constantly bumping fuel trim up and down, trying to stabilize everything.
And
I
that,
think,
surprisingly enough, will lead us into something called blower surge.
I was about to talk about blower surge. All right, well, now that we're talking about blowing, let's hop right into superchargers, boys.
Let's do it.
Yeah, so I almost
I need
forgot.
your beer so you can kick it off.
I almost forgot what our topic was today. But so we're going to be continuing on our mini-series, two-parter on forced induction. So we did turbochargers last week, and this week we are moving on to superchargers. I won't necessarily go back into all forced induction to supercharging, but when you're thinking about superchargers, you're thinking about what we're going to be talking about tonight.
Yep.
So
I'm thinking about a big old belt sticking out of the top of the hood.
Amen.
Big old nasty.
Gosh dang right you
Yeah,
are.
you know exactly what I'm thinking.
So superchargers, before getting into all the details of it, similar to turbocharging is
Wait. I know that. Okay. Let me throw this out there. Do you guys remember Family Matters? You remember the TV show Family Matters? Okay. Do you remember? Yeah, dude, I watched it every day when I was a kid, all the reruns. Do you remember on the intro to the show, like the theme song and everything's playing, and there's this one clip for like 2 seconds of Eddie. Remember Carl Winslow's son, Eddie? And he's working on this like Nova or something, some old car, and it has a massive blower sticking out of the hood with the 3 red butterflies in it. You know what I'm talking about?
Oh yeah, with like a hat.
And he's
blower hat.
he's doing nothing except he's standing there with the screwdriver.
Oh, dude, I remember
Do you know
this.
what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
He's standing there with the screwdriver and he's like pulling on it and like adjusting he's like doing absolutely nothing, but it's like this very close up scene of Eddie adjusting the like supercharger.
Yeah. Oh, that's great.
So every time I hear supercharger, that's instantly what pops into my head is Eddie Winslow adjusting the butterflies on.
Funny enough, that could be accurate if it was running like mechanical injection, like alcohol, because
the show didn't get into that.
Because those butterflies, that's your throttle blades. We're not getting into superchargers this deep at all. But
I thought it was just to look cool. So like when you hit the throttle, those things.
Well, they make.
I don't know.
Yeah, they make hats like that for you can bolt onto anything.
It may not have even been a supercharger. It may have just been a like scoop.
Easily.
I didn't even think about that. Okay. Well, anyways, whatever. Maybe that is off topic. That's just always what I think of when I hear supercharger.
Oh man.
I always think of the Fast and the Furious. This car at the end.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that was
Charger
that
or
was
whatever.
that was a blown.
Challenger?
That was a real blown motor, which is our first supercharger we're going to be talking about. But first off, supercharger you might have heard already. We've been calling it blowers here and there too. So they're also known as blowers. For obvious reasons, they blow more air into the intake manifold, which makes its way into the combustion.
Yeah.
So what a supercharger is, very similar to turbochargers, is an air compressor, or when it comes to superchargers, one in particular, more like an air pump, not a compressor. We'll get into that real quick.
Okay.
So what it's doing is designed to increase the amount of air that you would normally make normally aspirated or atmospheric pressure. So when we're getting into higher than atmospheric pressure, we're talking boost. Again, we talked about it in our last episode too, so we'll get too much into that. But with superchargers, they're most commonly, rarely if ever, stray from this, but operated off a belt from the engine. So it's powered by the engine rather than turbochargers powered by expelled gases or waste product from the exhaust of an engine.
So I have a question related to that. Is like, I know they're powered off the crankshaft, right, with a belt, but what exactly is my question? Are they ever powered from the, like, say, an engine with a serpentine belt that like runs all the accessory stuff, or is it always its own totally separate belt drive for a supercharger?
Generally, do you know what? Now with like OEM applications, they're run off of that same belt.
The serpentine.
The same one?
Yeah. But
because you can get a brand new supercharged, Challenger or whatever, and that's run off serpentine. That's not its own system.
So the fact that you don't typically see that on old cars, like they have their own belt, is more that
they're generally added. And also even like older cars, like you mentioned, they have a belt for almost every accessory drive. So you have a belt for your alternator or generator. You have a belt for your power steering. You have a belt for there's a lot of cases where they share different belts too.
But if you ran the supercharger from its own belt and it had its own pulley, you can also change how fast it spins in relation to the crank by changing pulley sizes and stuff, right? To try and get like more boost at different RPM or something. So there's
more easily,
probably something to that too.
But also a lot of the times these have tensioners on them. At least like not all of them do, but if you're running like higher boost, you're running or say like a smaller pulley size on the supercharger. It's taking a lot more effort to spin that because it's spinning at a higher ratio to where belt slip is a thing.
Oh, I see.
But majority of them do have some kind of tensioner on it to try to keep that belt as taut as possible. Because when that belt slips, that supercharger is not spinning as fast. So that's where you can, say if you're on the dyno, you can see the boost climbing, and even you can see it in horsepower too. You can start to see it either like plateau at a certain bit. It's more obvious when you're looking at boost levels. You'll just see it straight plateau, and it's like, okay, well, RPM is increasing, but boost level is staying the same. Generally, that means that it's a belt slip.
Got it.
I talked to a couple of some older motorhead buddies of mine, and they were saying back in the day, turbos back, in the 80s or 90s were so inefficient.
Exactly. Yeah.
There's such a lag back in those days that if you really wanted to have instantaneous horsepower, supercharger was the only way to go.
Well, yeah.
And not until recently. Now, of course, turbo has come so far.
Oh, absolutely.
There's not such a lag.
Yeah.
But they were saying, if you really wanted to drag race or you wanted to have a badass car, you always went supercharger.
Absolutely. Isn't that always been the benefit of supercharging, is that since it's powered directly off the motor, you do get instantaneous.
Yeah.
Like, that's even on the best turbo, that's still going to be an improvement with a supercharger, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. But
I wonder why anybody would. Yeah, I wonder why people would still buy. GTIs are still turbocharged and not
Well,
supercharged, I wonder.
because it runs off of the engine. So
Off
it's
waste gas rather than a load.
so
on
that's
the
why
motor, right?
turbochargers are free power, because it's using a waste product. It doesn't take any additional energy to make power, whereas superchargers cost power. So it's kind of like the old saying, it takes money to make money. It takes power to make power for the superchargers. So smaller.
On the flip side, you can power a bigger compressor, right? When you're literally powering it for the motor, you can also run a hell of a lot bigger compressor compared to a turbo, I would assume.
Not so much these days. I mean, you need to run like a bigger turbo, which can make a bunch of power. You actually probably you're using 2 turbos to make, like, we're talking like in the 3,000 like horsepower range.
Yeah.
Which honestly, in that territory, you are looking at more centrifugal superchargers, which we'll get into at that range. But well, even, you know what? All of these except one, really, you can do all that. Should we get into it, and some of this will kind of answer itself?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
I want to hear what the different types are, because I have heard about a Roots supercharger, and I have no idea what that means, but I've heard it.
Do you know what? I don't know why they call it Roots. I meant to look up because I was curious
I bet
myself.
Wikipedia will tell us, because I want to do it.
I'm thinking
that's something I've never learned, and I know I've heard.
I'm thinking it's either the designer, one of like their last name was Roots.
Carl Roots.
Oh, you know.
Or it was the OG, like original supercharger. So it's the Roots.
Nope.
No? What do you got?
It was your boys, Philander and Francis Marion Roots, founders of the Roots Blower Company of Connorsville, Indiana, who patented the basic design in 1860 as an air pump for use in blast furnaces.
Do you know what? I had to have come across that and just blew right through it.
No, it's your boy Philander.
Philander.
Literally his name, Philander.
I like that.
Philander and Francis Marion Roots. Those are the guys.
Oh,
That's so rad.
That's funny.
So Philander, and
Philander.
I even have it in my notes. Originally designed in 1858 might have been the rough year specifically, but
Well,
1860s.
Wikipedia says 1860 pretty clearly, so I
Founded by the Germans.
Originally designed to increase airflow for industrial furnaces.
That's interesting.
Probably like your old school, like hit and miss generator, or I guess generators or engines.
Yeah.
Those pretty standard were low RPM. So adding a supercharger, supercharge the air to blow and increase airflow for furnaces, more air for like smolders or whatever, higher heat. So didn't take long for the industrial world to get a hold of these and start applying them to internal combustion engines. First in the diesel engines were industrial engines were more so diesel at that point. So I don't know if we want to get too much into that. This is still in Roots, so you have those numbers that are in the notes there. So you'll hear numbers like 471, 671, 871, 1271, and even more so after that.
Number of cylinders and type of motor or something?
So you're pretty spot on at least half of that. So these Root style superchargers developed for diesel engines. I think it was General Motors that they might have been called General Motors. Yeah, General Motors diesel engines. That designation came from this. So on
what's the 71 mean?
Their 4-cylinder diesel motors, each cylinder was 71 cubic inches.
Oh,
so
cool. Holy shit, that's massive.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
71 cubic inches per cylinder. Okay. There's 4 of them.
Wow.
And then
like trash can.
Yeah. So all of these different superchargers.
74.
Yeah.
All of these different supercharger sizes like your 4, 6, 8, 1271 supercharger sizes. Those are the ones that just came off of that specific diesel engine.
Got it.
Now, when there's that classification still is carried on, which is an old hot rodder kind of thing. It's like, yeah, it came off an 871, so they just became an 871 supercharger. Now, as far as how much airflow they are capable of flowing, vary. I don't know those specifications, nor is it needed to really get into it. But the aftermarket still has like a 1671 and possibly even larger than that. Now, there never was a 16-cylinder diesel that used this root style blower, but the aftermarket just carried on with it. Just means it's a larger root style supercharger.
Yeah.
And when you look at or think of a supercharger, I guess that varied on your age or generation, but I'm pretty certain that when you first think of a supercharger, this is the supercharger that you think of.
Yeah.
Where it's mounted on the top of the engine, your carbs or throttle bodies, whatever it may be, on top of it. And this is the one you commonly see with what we were talking about earlier, that blower hood or hat, on it.
Yeah. Well, in this, I'm going to show this picture because this is exactly what I was thinking of when I was thinking of this type. This is the type with the two rotors that are kind of like almost oval shaped with different lobes on them that mesh as they turn, right? And that's where you get the compression from.
Yes.
I think this picture kind of describes it well. That's cool.
Yeah. So, well, it's good that you pulled that up because we can just jump into explaining kind of what it does. So it is two meshing rotors that, and the picture that you have up for listeners, it's two lobe rotors. But you can find them in two.
The high point of one is meshing with the low point of another as they turn.
So it's kind of, if you think about it, it takes bites of air and then spits it into the intake rather than compressing it. So this style, root style supercharger is considered more of a air pump rather than air compressor, like everything else we've talked about, including turbochargers. So what it does is it takes little chunks of air and then spits it into the intake manifold. Kind of like you're mostly gonna see three lobe rotors. They have all the way up to 4, but it's more commonly 3 rotor that you'll find in the automotive world, just because it's more
all stacked on top of each other.
So here's a visual that I actually thought about that I think works pretty well. So think of your like standard, the first image you have of a fidget spinner, those like 3 lobe little fidget spinners. Yeah. So if you take that shape and then elongate it and then put a twist on it.
Okay.
So that's what each rotor is. So it's just a meshing, and 2 of those, and they mesh together to take chunks of air and spit it into the intake manifold. So it's not doing any compressing. All the compressing is happening in the intake manifold going into the cylinders. So after the supercharger. That's pretty key, really, when we get to the next one.
Okay.
Now,
I like the coolest looking. Yeah, they do.
Yeah. So since we're talking about 3 different kinds, and they're all, for the most part, they're pretty different from each other. I kind of snuck in some differences or like benefits, really, was what I add in there.
So what is blower surge? I see you have that listed for this type of
Yeah, so that's kind of like a
supercharger.
little add-on. So when you think of like big CC, big blower, like burning nitro or alcohol, you're thinking of that on idle, that
Yeah.
that's blower surge. So you'll typically only get that with root style superchargers because of how they're designed. And what's really causing that is a surge of mixture because it's pulling it from the top, and then catching up, and then the motor. So that surge of mixture going into the engine fattens it up, so it lowers the idle speed, and then lowering the idle speed lowers the amount of air going into it, because this is like on idle, just after idle, you're still getting compressed air because it's a pump. It's pumping that air in, not compressing it. And then so as that speed richens, it slows it down. It's drawing less fuel.
Yeah.
And then so it leans the mixture out. Then it increases idle, and then the pattern continues. So that's where you get that.
Makes sense.
Now you can adjust to that, with messing with air bleeders and stuff like that on carburetors.
Yeah, but why would you want to? It sounds
Exactly.
Sounds so badass.
Exactly. Now there are definitely mixed opinions on what cars should have blower surge, but all of them.
Yeah,
All of
anybody
them should.
against it doesn't know what
Yeah,
they're
if
talking
you've
about,
got
so.
something sticking out of your hood, it deserves.
Yeah, it needs to sound like
it
You're
just
deserves.
Agreed.
Yeah. So pretty much, it's
all right.
it's like it's very similar to like a vacuum leak, for the most part.
Yeah,
like a
that
severe
makes sense.
vacuum leak.
Okay, so what about the twin screw type?
Twin screw it's kind of like version 2 of roots.
I see you said it uses like worm gears, and I've seen for sure pictures of that. Well, as soon as I saw that, I was like, okay, then I do know the difference because I've seen pictures of both of these.
Yeah. Do you know what? So
Because
like
if you have the cover off, you literally they are literally two worm gear rotors kind of things, right? That are like completely meshed with each other.
exactly. So
And you can imagine how that would work, I think, if you see a picture of it. I wonder if I can find a picture of that one too. Let's see.
Yeah.
Sorry,
so
keep going.
like what I was thinking too is like, you know how I'm sure most people have seen like the pedal bike that has 4 wheels or even 2, I don't know, that has square wheels, and then it's on the track that's wave-like. This might confuse people more so than help them, but this is definitely going to confuse people more so.
Well, don't get.
Do you know where I'm getting
Yeah,
at?
well, then
Do you know where I'm
then
getting
don't
at?
say it.
Okay.
Don't do it.
Yeah.
Here's a twin screw type, not diagram, but picture.
Is this the Lysholm or whatever I read today?
it says that Lysholm screw rotors. I've never heard it called that.
Yeah, I
But
don't know.
That's just another one of the things named after the guy. I was just reading up on it today.
is it named
gotcha.
after a dude too?
Yeah, that's his last name as well.
You did more research.
Philan-
than I
I'm
did.
gonna invent something,
Philander?
just call it Mackie
Philander.
something, just because it's awesome.
Yeah, but it's not gonna be a supercharger. It's gonna
It's
be
not
like
gonna be a
asshole
supercharger.
polish or something.
Mackie's asshole polish.
Your finest Maggie's butthole polish.
Maybe I won't call him Mackie.
I don't. I mean, yeah,
Oh,
put your
something.
name on it, man. Okay, so
Squirrel.
Yeah, I literally had like one moment of where I didn't pay attention, and then I jumped back in and you guys were talking about that quickly. I was already lost in the
yeah,
conversation.
that'll
Don't
happen.
lose track.
That'll happen.
Derail quickly here.
But let's see. Well, it's also probably just jump back to roots real quick. It is definitely being the most like the original form of supercharger.
Right.
Definitely the least efficient. because that whole process creates a lot of friction, and so with friction comes heat, comes a thinner or less dense air going into the intake manifold. So you have less supply of what you're trying to produce.
Right.
There's ways around that when you're making like high horsepower, like so even Top Fuel, they're using a type of root style superchargers because you have power right off idle, and it keeps increasing as engine speed. Because it's just taking those chunks of air and shoving it in. It doesn't matter what, I guess I don't need to get into that, but how you can control those temperatures is with fueling if you're making that higher horsepower. So your fueling can cool down that mixture.
Right.
Like methanol, methanol is pretty much the top one that gets used.
So why then are twin screw more efficient and cooler? And like, what is the improvement? Because they both do the same thing. They both essentially work the same way. But why is the twin screw type better?
Because of how it makes that boost. So with twin screws, you have.
Is it because you constantly have the worm gear meshing? Like you have more surface area of the rotors meshing together?
Generally have tighter tolerances with twin screw, and what they're doing is like it says, it's two screws. So one screw is say finned like a screw, and then the other one is meshed with the inverse of that. So you're
it'd be like lining up literally like two screw threads together,
exactly,
right? To see how they fit into each other.
Exactly.
Right? The same thread pitch basically. So
it's pulling the air from say front or back, and then as it comes through the screws, it's compressing it. So pretty much just stacking air because it's moving at a higher rate. So the compression is happening inside of the housing, and because it's doing, because of how it pretty much compresses the air, it packages better because the compressed air comes out through the top of the screws, and so you can wrap that around where usually they're internally intercooled. At least modern styles, you'll see them internally intercooled, where as the compressed air comes up into the housing, it wraps around on the sides and then through an intercooler, usually a air to water intercooler. So you can cool the charge before it goes into the intake. So because the boost air or charge is happening within the housing, you can then, I guess you can just package it to cool better. Where on the root style, it's pretty difficult to cool it with any additional coolers like an intercooler. You, for the most part, have to cool it with fuel.
Because it's typically mounted directly
to the intake.
Intake. Yeah. Okay. Makes sense.
And the charged air happens in the cylinder, in the intake, not in the housing of the supercharger. So you have a more controlled environment in the twin screw, essentially. So it's based off of a root style, but improved.
It's a significant improvement.
Absolutely.
Over all of it. Okay. Then what about the I always say this wrong. Centrifugal?
Centrifugal. I mean, it's like when you read it, it's like you want to say centrifugal.
I always say that wrong.
I mean, it honestly could be. I don't know.
This is interesting because I don't know anything about this, but this operates more similar to a turbocharger.
100%. So
okay, so how? I don't know anything about this at all.
So on the charging side, it's actually pulling in the air and then compressing the air.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure there's differences. I don't necessarily know what they are, but it looks at least near identical to the compressor side of a turbocharger, because it's doing the same thing. So
Oh, interesting. Okay, I see. Okay, you said gear ratios in the supercharger make it able to spin the impeller fast enough to create positive boost in the intake. So you're actually gearing up the
100%
through the pulley to get the RPMs out of a
Exactly.
compressor wheel, but you're still powering it from crank rotate. Oh, interesting. Okay.
So what a turbine side, the hot side of a turbocharger is doing with exhaust gases, a gearbox on the back side of a centrifugal supercharger is doing instead.
Gearing the RPM
Exactly.
way up to get those speeds out of relatively slow crank rotation
100%
from the motor.
So
Yeah.
it's good to note, or
Interesting.
important to note here, all of these systems are going to be running on a higher ratio than 1-to-1,
Then
because otherwise you're being inefficient at taking the same amount of air with just open.
right, because like what's high RPM for a car motor? I don't know, like 6,000 RPM or something.
Yeah, no, that's
And then what would I don't know if we talked about it last time, but what's the RPM of a turbo spinning? Like 10,000, 20,000? I have no idea. It's really high. I assume,
hundreds. Possibly up to hundreds,
right? Hundreds
of thousands of RPM.
So you clearly have to increase the RPM of the
Exactly.
supercharger through gearing, right, to get that way up.
I feel like this is probably the supercharger they use on modern vehicles.
That would be my guess.
So
yeah.
the OEM style, if there's a OEM production car comes with a supercharger,
Yeah.
100% is going to have a twin screw.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
100%. Yeah.
Twin screw. I think it says centrifugal. So what's the application for the centrifugal style? Is that like race car stuff?
Generally, if you're wanting to make larger power, centrifugal is able to do that. Again, roots, you can really get up there too, but it's harder to control and it's not quite as efficient. What it does have is like right off idle, you're getting like
instant.
it honestly, like a root style supercharger acts like a naturally aspirated engine as far as the power curve. But if you look at a difference, for the most part, naturally aspirated and then root style supercharger, it looks like you just take that power band and just raise it up.
Shift.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where
Okay.
twin screws are similar, but you'll see a little bit more where it tapers up slightly. But it's not, once it starts in the higher RPM range, you're not going to see the boost gains or power gains like a root style would within a twin screw. But it is extremely reliable like the root style, the twin screw, which is why manufacturers will tend to put it in there. And it's packaged really well. So
you
can close
covering
the hood on it.
Your benefits pretty well. Roots type have boost right off idle, highest potential power gains if all the conditions are met correctly. Looks cool as shit.
It really does.
Which I like, which I totally agree with. And super reliable.
Did I really put that in there?
You did. That's an
All right,
excellent
good.
note because it is. And twin screw type has really good power at low RPM. It can be packaged easier under a hood. Boost doesn't need to keep climbing in the RPM range, and they are also super reliable.
Okay.
So the centrifugal type, I'll read your benefits as well here. Lots of adjustability, packages easily, lower air temperatures, favors higher RPM, easy to add to an engine, and reliable.
I guess they're all reliable.
I mean, it seems like it. They all
Maybe
seem to be pretty
compared
reliable based on the
to
notes here.
the turbochargers, because there's a lot more required for a turbocharger than for supercharger systems. The balance out comes to really, like, who's to say a supercharger is better than supercharger, a lot of different factors. But superchargers are gonna tend to cost more, but simpler and an easier package.
Well, there's less plumbing and stuff, right?
It's
Like,
affecting
related
less things
to a turbocharger.
But you can get some pretty cheap gains out of a turbocharger.
Right.
But you just have to be a little bit more intrusive. And you can blow up a lot more. You can blow up things a lot easier with turbochargers.
Yeah.
Nice. But how are we doing on time, real quick?
Well, we're over. I was going to
right
say,
on. I think we're right on track to wrap it up. I think we covered most of it here.
Okay.
Yeah. Do you have anything else to add to it? Honestly, I think that was a pretty good overview and covered it in a pretty good time frame.
Well, sweet. I like that. And also with with something with centrifugal superchargers that at least I want to add is part of its simplicity. So you're not having to change intake manifolds. You're essentially adding it to, let's just say, the accessory drive to your motor.
That's a big benefit for
sure. But also, you can mount it within reason in much more variety of places, of course, rather than the fixed spot on the on top or on the side, depending on engine layout. But we won't get into that.
Right.
But it's easy to run piping to an intercooler, say.
Yeah.
So you have an easier way of adjustability to charge it and still somewhat maintain an easily packaged system.
Right. That makes sense.
So,
but then you don't have the super rad, thing sticking out of your hood, which
who wants to
failed
close
to see the point if you don't have it coming out of the hood.
But it does make a little bit. It's like its own unique sound, as far as more similar to like a turbocharger, like
I can imagine that.
like whistle.
Right.
If a whistle could whine, that's what a centrifugal sounds like.
Okay, do the noise for us so we can imagine it.
Yeah, I don't know. I can't do it.
Yes. I can't believe you actually tried it.
Oh, dude, he did
I was
it.
curious. I was curious myself. Because there's like a two-tone. You need the high and low sound.
That was the best part of the whole podcast.
Nice. That was worth it.
And that's how donkeys are born.
Well, and there you have it, guys. On that note, that is our coverage of superchargers and the noises they make.
Oh man,
that was awesome. No, good job, Brady. That was cool, man. That was good.
Oh, cool
for sure. Nice. All right, well, right on. Good job, guys. I think that was a pretty good coverage of that. I like it.
Yeah, let's run through some of our contacts to end it off.
Yeah. So make sure you check out allwheelspodcast.com and check out our Instagram, allwheelspodcast, contact at allwheelspodcast.com to email us. What else am I forgetting?
Wait, the email is, contact.
Yeah, contact.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah.
And of course, check us out on all the podcast locations.
Yeah, well,
Wherever
I figure if somebody's listening to
podcast.
this, they figured out somewhere to find it, right? But you can find it anywhere, and we're like totally up and running on everything, so you can find it easily on anything: Spotify, Google, Apple, whatever.
Yeah, and share it if you know
I use
anybody
Pocket
that would
Casts
like this.
a ton on my phone. We're in their network now, which is great on Android.
Yeah, there we go.
But yeah, and share it and tell people and. Yeah, we definitely want to help get the word out, and we'd love to start. We have some interviews planned coming up. In fact, I think our next episode is going to be an interview.
I
with,
believe so.
Sounds like a pretty rad dude. I think it'll be interesting.
Inches away from confirming that for next week. So,
well, and I'm working on another one. We're going to have some cool people to talk to, and so hopefully you like what we have coming up. We're going to keep mixing it up.
Oh, hey, kitty.
So what are you doing in there, Max?
Max's
Max's
cat is walking in front of the webcam.
Yeah. He is.
Come on, get
So one thing too, please reach out to us. We'd love to hear some feedback. And the show is still very much in its infancy. So any kind of feedback we get from the listeners that we have now is very important and crucial for us, because we want to. There's a lot of things that you hear that we don't, that will only help us get better and try to put out the best stuff we can for all you.
Yep, definitely. Our guest suggestions or interesting people to talk to. We want to keep this.
Topic suggestions.
Yeah, we want to keep this interesting and different. Like, we don't need to do the same thing every time. So absolutely, let us know what you think and any recommendations. So, well, right on. Good job, guys. We'll be back next week with another topic, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.
See ya.
Take her easy.